So the first one on top is the independent variable, and we have the dependent variable. So this is the direct effect. And here there's no mediator. Looking at the image down there, we have an intervening variable, which is MV. So MV is serving as a mediator between the independent variable IV and then dependent variable. So the mechanism through which the IV passes through to get to the DV is what we term as the mediating variable. Okay, so anytime you are establishing a conceptual model or a framework, any variable that comes in between two different variables or constructs, that is what we term as mediation. Mhm. So in mediation analysis, the total effect of an outcome of a predictor on an outcome is separated into direct effects and then indirect effects that operate through the mediator. The separation helps clarify how much of the relationship is explained by the intervening variable or the mediator. So a mediation effect is established when the predictor significantly influences the mediator and then the mediator significantly influences the outcome, which therefore indicates that the mediator plays an active role in transmitting the effect. So in sum, mediation is assessed using the bootstrapping procedure to test the significance of the indirect effects. So last week we did this kind of bootstrapping. Now let's look at the types of mediation. We have what we call the full mediation, the partial mediation. Sometimes you can establish a model, but there's no mediation at all. So what is a full mediation? Full mediation occurs when the relationship between the predictor and then the outcome is completely explained by the mediator, such that the direct effect becomes non-significant once the mediator is included in the model. So let's use this model as an example. So we can term or we can call a full mediation. For example, we have IV, we have MV, DV, and we all understand that MV is the mediator here. So if the direct relationship between IV and then DV is insignificant, and the mediation or the indirect effect, that is the MV, being an intervening variable between IV and then the DV here, if that is significant, that is where you can call it full mediation, right? So that is full mediation. Partial mediation occurs when the mediator explains part of the relationship between the predictor and the outcome, while the direct effect remains significant, indicating that both direct and indirect pathway operates at the same time. So here we call it partial mediation when the direct relationship between IV and DV itself is significant. At the same time, if the mediation or the indirect effect is also significant, we call the mediation results or the path a partial mediation. And if there's no mediation, it means that it occurs through when, if no mediation is observed, when the indirect effect through the mediator is not significant, which shows that the mediation does not play any meaningful role in the transmission process. All right, so that is some 3 key mediation types that you have to know. So mediation is supported when the direct effect is statistically significant based on the bootstrapping results, as this confirms that the effect of the predictor on the outcome is transmitted through the mediator. So the significance of the direct effect is then examined to determine whether the mediation is full or partial, as we have already discussed, with a non-significant direct effect indicating full mediation, and then a significant direct effect indicating partial mediation. and sometimes there can be no mediation at all. So the strength of mediation effect is assessed using the variance accounted for. That is VF, which indicates the proportion of the total effect that is explained by the indirect pathway. But with the variance accounted for, the software as at its current stage, they have not really added the variance accounted for. Okay, so with smart, if you're using SmartPLS as the sole tool in your analysis, there's no need for you to present or talk about variance accounted for because the software has not really gotten to that stage. So far as you're able to establish your path and then your significant values, I think you are good to publish your results. So that is some few information about mediation. Also, we have moderation. Moderation focuses on when or under what circumstance the relationship changes. It examines whether the relationship between a predictor and the outcome changes across different levels of what another variable. So with moderation, we introduce a third variable that alters the strength or the direction of the relationship between the predictor and then the outcome. So here, the effect is not transmitted through another variable. So if it is transmitted through another variable, that is what we term as the mediation. It is important to note that the moderator does not explain the relationship. It only influences the strength or the direction of the relationship. So it means that it is mediation that influences or that explains the relationship, right? Moderation helps identify boundary conditions. It shows when a relationship is stronger, weaker, reversed under specific circumstances. In SmartPLS or in PLSM, moderation is tested using the interaction effect. Okay, so if you don't hear moderation, you can also see interaction. The same way with mediation, if you don't hear mediation, you can also see or hear intervening variable, right? So instead of intervening moderation, we call it interaction, right? So this effect shows that whether relationship differ across levels of contextual or individual factors. So if you combine the two that we have talked about today, we can depict it diagrammatically this way. So the key independent variable is here. We have our mediator or the intervening variable. We have the dependent variable. And always the moderation or the moderator variable or construct is always pointed on the line, right? So as you can see here, so this means that we are looking at the moderation relationship between the independent variable here and then the dependent variable, right? So if you want to also assess the moderation relationship between independent variable and then that of the mediator, it means that you have to extend the line from the moderation or the moderating variable to this line, the line here. And then if you also want to assess the moderation or the interaction between the mediator and then the dependent variable, you have to extend our line to hit this point. All right. So that is the key differences you're supposed to take note. So I think we can do some basic analysis on this and then we can call it a day. I want to share another data on the platform. The one that we used last week, it was having about 102 participants. So let me tell this one. This one has a number of participants. So oh, um, I've shared the file, it will come. I don't know. I think because of the VPN that we're using. That is why we are facing this. This is also my SmartPLS interface. Last week, we were looking at a new workspace. So let me open that. So this was our first project. All right. So now let me import the new data file that I've sent on the platform. So this one has 170 cases. All right. We have gender, we have age, education, and we have TL. TL here represents transnational leadership. So this is about leadership. And then TS is about transformational leadership. The LS is about reserve fare. So the indicator for reserve fare. And then the MOT is about motivation. Motivation effectiveness. And then the COM is communication effectiveness. And then we have the FP. FP, I think it is firm performance. Yeah. So let me import this. So last week we had some um, explanations on this. We don't have any missing value here, so we have to just move on. We have 45 indicators. There's no missing value. And then we go back. So we can create a new PLS project. So you can just click on this. So let's call this one project. Mm. So how do we start? For those of us who didn't join last week, we just have to, you can simply create a model without having to um, select the indicators onto the space. Last week, what we did was that we just selected the indicators that we want to work with. So for example, you want to look at transactional leadership, and then we just select by clicking on the first one that you want to select TL to all the way to TL6. Then you move it inside. So we can call this one transactional leadership. All right. I can move it to the center and then send this back. And then we can moderate or we can mediate. Let's say you want to mediate with motivation. So we scroll down to MOT. MOT. I also move it inside to motivation. Then let's say I want to also moderate with communication effectiveness. So I'll select, holding down the shift key, I'll select the last indicator. So COM7. Then I'll drag and drop onto the space. Okay. Communication effectiveness. And then the last one, pen performance. Let me zoom out a little bit so that we can have it. The next thing you're supposed to do is connect the lines, right? So motivation is a mediator. So you have to move from transaction leadership to motivation. Then from this to this end, and then this to that end. So if you're looking at all mediation, it means that we can move this one to the right. Then we move this one to this side. In this case, we're looking at all mediation. So last week we discussed that you have to present your model such that it will be beautifully presented. So as you move, SmartPLS software will show some green line. That shows that yes, everything is in the same line. So now I think this is okay. So let's try and run the first model and see how it works. Okay. So you see, after running the first model, you realize that most of the values are covering the firm performance and then um, the other names, the construct in here. So you can either move it or come back. Let's try and then one thing you can do is that you can double click on the construct and then rename it here. So in the caption report, you can just rename it. So let me save this and come back. Open. So rename. Yeah, I wanted to do I wanted to move the leadership down to transactional. But I think maybe it is the update that I've done. That's why it's not working. But I could have done it that way. I'll try and see if it works. Because it used to be here and then. But you can move the values down so that you can see them clearly. So you can always position them so that whenever you run the models, the values will not be hidden under some of the. So here, let's move this one here. So now this is our first model. last week we reached these points. So here we have two mediators. We have motivation and then communication as a mediator. And what do we do next? We are supposed to check our measurement model, right? So without having to go to a report, you can even check them here. So first, let's check the indicator loadings, right? So we last week we discussed that it's supposed to be more than 0.7. So this is 0.7, 0.6, 0.8, 0.817. All right, and this is 0.052. So this is not really a good loading, right? So you call something iteration, you have to take it away from the model or the construct. So this is giving us 0.052. So you have to go delete that. So let me extend it. We are going to come back to that. Let's check the frame performance. We have 0.8 all the way to um, frame performance 8. It's also loading 0.12, which is very bad. So let me extend that. We are going to delete it. And then looking at this, we have 0.6 here. So far, the next thing you're supposed to do is that you can just put the mouse on the construct and then it gives us the results. So we have our square to be 0.037. Let's check our composite reliability. Last week we learned that it's supposed to be more than 0.7. So here we have 0.748. And then the average variance extracted, right, which checks the convergent validity. It is always supposed to be more than 0.5. So here we have 0.531. So we have met, right? And then Chromback Alpha 2 is also more than 0.7. Same way, Chromback composite reliability will see a 0.52. So everything here is met. But the only problem is that the loading 0.052 is very low. So although we have met the condition for average variance extracted, but 0.052, it is not good to report this because this is the loading and it is 0.05, about 5% is being loaded onto motivation. So this is very bad. You have to take it away. You can just click on delete here, select delete, and then come and select the indicator. It will just delete it. And because I have the automatic or the recalculate automatically on, as soon as I deleted it, it automatically ran again. So you can turn it off and then you will delete. So nothing has changed. You can also delete this one. So this is a very new feature in SmartPLS. I think it's very good. Once you activate it, it automatically runs it for you. Now 0.69 is not really bad. There are studies that justify that once you meet AV to be more than 0.5, and even if you have 0.6 of your loadings, you can let it be in. So we are not going to do anything to the M2, all right? You can leave it like that. If you also want to improve your model score, you can delete it. So let's see what happens. So anytime you delete an indicator, what happens is that the R square changes. So this is the R square. I mean, how much of the motivation is being explained by transactional leadership here. So we have 0.03 if we have MO2 as part of it. So if we delete this one, we now have 0.029, right? So as and when you iterate some of the indicators to make sure that you meet the criteria, the R square on the values recalculated and it changes, right? So let's also delete this one from it. The FP8 because the loading is 0.126, which is very low. So let me delete that. And then we check communication effectiveness. The R square is 0.016. R square adjusted is also the 0.01. Composite reliability is 0.9. We have met average variance extracted 0.550. We have chromac alpha to be 0.8. So we have met all of these. This one too, we have met, right? So we can now come to select and then we organize our model nicely again by using the movement, right? You can also reorganize your indicators. So whatever you want to do, it is your own choice. So let's go to the report and check the VIF as well. So now with the path, we have seen it here. Negative 0.172, 0.020. You have seen everything here. You can also see it here in the path. If you want it in the form of list, we have the total effect, whether matrix or list. And then specific indirect effects. That is the mediation, the path of the mediation, and then the total effect. So this is the outer loadings. So the last time we discussed that whenever you see any green light or green value, it means that you are good to go. But we have left this 0.645, although it does not meet the criteria, but we can justify why you have left it inside with papers that have been published. All right. It is justifiable because once you meet AV, you can keep 0.6 values inside. Even some people keep 0.5, especially when you have very limited number of indicators. So assuming that all your construct indicators are 5 in total when you started the initial model, and then you realize that about 2 of them are less than 0.3, you have to take them out. So if you have, let's say 0.5, 0.6, and 0.7, if you take them out, it means that your model is almost collapsing. So you can leave them once the AV is what it meets the 0.5 threshold. That is all. So that's why you have left this red inside because the AV is met. And how do we get to know that? Because we found it from the diagram. In other sense, you can come to the result and then come to construct reliability and validity. You will see them in here. So everything is green. It shows that we are good to go. You can also see our R square here, F square. And then let's check our discriminant validity. The last time we discussed that there are 3 ways to check that. The first one, we mentioned the HTMT, head trait monotrate ratio, the HTMT ratio, right? And we said that if it is less than 0.85, you are good to go. And in simple terms, if you see green light in here, you are good to go. So you don't have to be worried. You can just copy your result in Excel, copy it here, and then you paste it wherever you want to paste it. Now, let's check VIF, collinearity statistics. And here, most of the times, if you have collinearity value or the VIF value less than 0.33, you're good to go, right? Some also justify that if it is less than 5, you're good to go. So anything that is above 3.3 or anything above 3, that is why it is not in green. So SmartPLS use a threshold of 3. If it is less than 3, it gives you that green light. Black does not mean that it is bad, no. So you can keep these values. Even VIF of 9 is justifiable, but it depends on the area of study, right? Mhm. So VIF of 3.3 is okay, or less than 5. you can justify and then go away. We have Fonelaka. So the square of our AV should be more than the respective construct values. So here, the square of the AV of communications effectiveness is giving us 0. The square root, you are looking at the square root, not the square root of the AV value, all right? So the AV value for communication effectiveness is 0.550. So the square root of 0.550 is what gives us the fundamental criteria, right? Same way, the square root of firm performance here is what gives us the 0.848. And this 0.848 must be greater than the value on the left side, right? Same way, the square root of AVE, the square root of AVE of motivation should be more than the values on the left, right? The respective values, construct values on the left. So if you look at this one, everything is met. Okay. So in publication, you can present these two. You can present, at least if these two are met, you are good to go. Traditionally, we used to report only on the Fonelaka before the ATMT came. So if you're able to present on the Fonelaka and then the ATMT, you're good to go. You can also go further and present on the cross loadings. And last week, we discussed that once your ATMT and then the Fonelaka criterion are met, you don't have to be worried about the cross loadings, but you can present it because at the end of the day, we discussed that the values in here for the indicators loading onto 8 parent constructs should be more than the loadings of the other parent constructs, right? So that's what we discussed. So if you look at, we have communication effectiveness. Let me come back and do that again because I was clicking on it. So, okay, we have them grouped here. So COM2, COM3, all the way to 7. We have 0.798. Comparing to firm performance value, we have 0.009. So you see there's a wide gap, right? So you're good to go. If you look at normally when you click on top here, it's sorted for you in ascending order. That's why you are facing this ungrouped values. So here you can see that their values are in ascending order. And you click here to the same thing, it's sorted using the values. So here from the lowest to the highest, down here. And then when you click from the highest to the lowest. So that is it about. With SmartPLS, normally people do not report on uh, model fits because they are but you're going to come back to the model fit proper and then we see the values and how you can even get our degree of freedom. But SmartPLS at its current state does not report on degree of freedom. So this is not really important. So that is it. Now let's change our model to moderation. Let's say we want to moderate the communication effectiveness in here, right? So what I will do is that I will delete the model. I will select delete and then I will delete that line. I'll delete this one as well. Okay, then I'll connect rather. So here I'm going to click on connect and then extend my line or the arrow to the line. So you can see that it does it automatically. right? Good. So now I can come back to our report and let's go and check the moderation results. Let's check if you want to check the significance. We said that you have to go to the bootstrap page section. So let's run the bootstrap. You have to ensure that we are bootstrapping with 5,000 subsamples, right? And everything is here. Everything here is default. So we just start calculating. So it will run it for us. So now we have our results. We go to open report. If you don't want to open the report, you can just view it from here. All right. So you can see the path. You can see the path value. In terms of the structural model, the p-value is being selected. So structural model, we have the p-value. So what we see here, the 0.065 is the p-value. The same applies to this, same applies to that 0.0. So it means that the direct relation between transactional leadership and the FM performance is significant at 0.00, right? And this is 0.065. But this is not significant, even at 10% significant value. So because we have 0.670 here. You can change it and then select maybe path and then p-values. So now we can see the path. All right. So here we have negative 0.159. The p-value is 0.65. Same applies to this. The path is positive 0.030, not significant. This is also 0.603, significant, right? And then same way for the moderation, you can see that um, the moderation rule between transactional leadership and the motivation is 0.020, and then the estimate or the beta is 0.020, but it is 0.837 for the p-value, meaning it's not significant, right? This two is also not significant, and then this is also 0.70, 0.784, not significant. You can go further and view the report. So let's go to the path. So this gives us the full view of the report, all right? Now we have our beta estimate or the sample mean. The standard deviation also presented the t-statistics, okay? And then the p-values. So the values that we saw are also all presented. So it means that with this model, the relationship between transactional leadership and then firm performance is the only significant predictor in the model that we have just done. As simple as that. So you can report on all of these values. Okay. You can present on all of these values and then you're good to go. Most times, researchers present only on the sample mean, the original sample mean, and then they ignore the sample mean in here. So normally they report on the beta estimate here, and then they ignore this. And most times they present on the t-statistics, and then the p-values, they don't normally show the values, but they show the stars. So there are so many ways you can present it. Maybe when there is time and then we are doing it with presentation, we can look at that. So we have mediation, right? The specific indirect effect. So let's see, that's not significant. So transactional leadership, motivation, and then firm performance. The mediation rule of motivation is also 0.714 for the p-value. So it means that it's not significant as well. Now let's go and check the moderation. The moderation is presented in the path. Okay, so when you go to the path, you can see the value for the moderation. So normally it shows this times. So whenever you see times in a model, that shows the moderation effect or the interaction effect. So this arrow here is showing the path. So when you see this dash and then the greater than sign, it shows that the direct effect of communication effectiveness and frame performance, right? Mhm. So here, the times or the cross that you see here shows that communication effectiveness is moderating the relationship between motivation and then firm performance. And then the estimate it's at 0.021. Same way, this means that communication effectiveness is moderating transactional, the relationship between transactional leadership and then firm performance. So let's take note of this cross about the times in here. It shows significance. It shows the moderation effect. Yes. So we can find our moderation values in the path. And then if you want to see your mediation values, you come to specific indirect effects. Everything is shown in the results. Okay. Last week we mentioned that you cannot see your R square unless you run the slower version of the analysis. So we did that. You see the amount of results you come to most important faster. So if you select complete slower, it will run everything for you. So let's try that. But this will take some time. And normally the speed depends on your laptop or your computer. So let's give it some time. Let it run. Let's see. Yes. So now we can open a full report. You can come to the house square. And you can see it here. Test the house square, F square. Every value will now show. So it depends on what you want to do. So that is it. I don't know if there's any questions so far. You can raise your question and then this is what we wanted to do for today. Next time you proceed from where you have ended. With SmartPLS, if you're able to know some of these things, I think we are good to go. You don't have to know everything. Okay. Because with even Framex is another form of analysis we're going to do with future teams. The POS is also another thing we can do. Maybe next week we will do bootstrap multi-group analysis. All right. First, let me pause for a moment and then see if there are some questions. Then we will discuss. Is there any question so far? Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ajuman.
Yes, I was.
Please, where's the data set? I can't see it
I've
in the
sent
group.
the data set to, but it didn't appear because of the VPN matter we are discussing. I think with the Zoom, if you are using Zoom, you're not able to um, use the VPN. So I think currently it is off. Let me turn it on again. The video will pause for a while so I can share.
Okay, thank you.
Or let me send it to you via WeChat. Okay, then you send it to the. Please send it to you.
Okay, sure.
Then you share it to the platform. So I'm sharing that wisdom, and the wisdom will share it to the platform. Wisdom, please check your account and see if you have received it.
You can also share with me and see. I would send it.
Okay. Hope you have received it, as I said. So I don't know if there's any question. There's no question so far. I think that we are good. So next week, what we want to do is that let's get concept, all right? Let's get a concept that we can start building, and then probably we can write a paper on it. So for us, for those of us who joined today, you now understand moderation, you understand mediation, right? The only thing you're supposed to do is like get a concept, get a clear concept. We have posted some articles on the platform. You can review them, and then in your area, you can get a concept that we can, I mean, discuss together. And then you're going to start with the data collection so that we can also assist you get some paper if you want to do that. I think we are good to go. You can also export the values, whatever you have done here, you can export it in the form of Excel. So you just click on Excel, and then you can export that. It will do that for you automatically. So if there's no question, then it means that we can pause for today. Then you proceed some other time.